I felt like I was carrying this loss by myself. Felt like you quickly wanted to get back into the bedroom. I was still scared that if I got pregnant again, I was gonna have yet another miscarriage. So I was almost afraid for us to come together again because I was like, I haven't even processed what's happening. I can't get pregnant again. And I felt like you weren't sensitive to that. You do feel real grief even for the baby you never got to hold, and how your body still reminds you that at one point you were pregnant. I'm saying things to you now that I don't think we ever sat down and talked about.
Never in 20 years. 20 years I've been with you. I've never heard those words. It even clicked in my mind that something happened, trauma hit her body, and you were expecting her to show back up like it was a brand new day.
I never stopped loving my husband. I never stopped being attracted to him, but for a season, I stopped wanting sex. And those are not the same thing. And if you are the spouse on the other side of that, I know it feels like rejection, even when it's not.
What we feel emotionally doesn't always translate to what we feel physically. And it took me a long time to understand that affection and arousal are not the same thing. You can be madly in love with your girl or madly in love with your husband and not have sexual desire. The heart, the head, and the body doesn't always cooperate.
Unfortunately, my heart was in, my head was in, but my body was somewhere else altogether.
So if you're in a marriage where the love is real, but the bedroom is quiet, I want you to lock in because this episode is for you. We're not here to guilt you. We are here to give you language for what's actually happening right now.
Because we almost let confusion and hurt do what a lack of love could not do, and that was tear us apart.
So here's what we want to do, people. We want to welcome you back to another episode of BennetLife TV. My name is Ken.
And I'm Dana.
And we've been married for almost 20 years. We're pastors, we're coaches, and we're two people who've had to fight for our marriage more than once. This podcast exists simply because we believe healthy marriages don't happen by accident. They happen on purpose. And sometimes that means talking about the stuff that nobody wants to talk about. So in today's episodes, it's one of those conversations. We're going to be talking about what happens when the love is real, but the bedroom has gone quiet.
Crickets. One of the things we teach couples is that marriage moves through predictable stages. Yeah, that's good. 7 of them to be exact. And understanding where you are can actually help save you from making terrible decisions in a temporary season. The stage that's most relevant to what we're talking about today is stage 2, which is the realization stage. We call it the disillusioned learner stage. This is the season where the excitement starts to decrease. There's a gap between what you expected and the reality of what you're actually experiencing. This is where you realize, oh, we're actually different people. And there's a lot of couples that this is where the bedroom starts to shift and look different than when they first said I do.
In the first stage, there's 7 stages. And you know what? I think we're going to do them a favor and we're going to drop the link for them to actually download the 7 stages of marriage. They can take it, look at it, and be able to prayerfully identify what stage they're in. But in stage 1, we talk about it being the passion stage. Everything starts to feel easy. You're excited. You're madly in love. You know, you're in love all the time. But you haven't hit any resistance in that stage. Sex is frequent. Desire feels automatic. You think this is just how we are. But then realization begins to hit, or better yet, life hits you. And suddenly the things that used to flow don't. She's tired. The man is confused. The spontaneous desire that showed up in the past without effort is not showing up anymore. And here's where couples make a critical mistake. And that's why we're shooting this episode today. They assume that a drop in desire means a drop in love, but that's not what's happening. What's happening is you've entered a new stage and the rules have changed.
Absolutely. Stage 1 is that honeymoon stage, and your body cooperated with your heart automatically. In the realization stage, your heart and your body starts operating on different schedules. And it's usually because there's stress of work, there's kids now, there's other things that are vying for your attention. And if you don't have a language for that, it feels like something is broken. But it's not broken. It's just different. And different, it just requires a different approach.
And we want to, as we do in every episode, we believe in being transparent. At this point, BennetLife TV, this makes episode 33 or somewhere in the 30s. We've been doing this for now a year. Has it been a year?
So.
A year?
Maybe.
And so some of you all know our story and some of you don't. And so, this is something that actually happened to Dana and I. We didn't fall out of love. We just entered the realization stage and we didn't even know it. We didn't have any language for it. No one ever prepared us for it. We were just blindly in a new stage. We were winging it. And thankfully, you get to borrow our history. You get to borrow our experience so you don't have to repeat the mistakes that we went through. We were still deeply in love with each other. She was attracted to me. I was attracted to her, but her body had stopped cooperating. She's struggling with hormones, grief from a miscarriage that she had gone through, dealing with medication side effects. And although her heart was for me, her body was just somewhere else. You want to speak to that for a second?
Yeah, it was all of the things that you mentioned, and it was, compounded grief from multiple miscarriages. It was hormones that were out of whack from the miscarriages, plus PCOS with which is something that a lot of women deal with.
What is that?
It's polycystic ovarian syndrome, and
so sounds very deep and doctoral.
I'm not even going to take the time to explain it to you because you are the person who told somebody went to I'm just side note.
Oh my
Somebody
goodness.
came to my husband at the church and said, Pastor, I'm having surgery. I'm having a hysterectomy. And could you please pray for me because I'm nervous about it? He says, oh, absolutely. Please keep us posted. Matter of fact, my wife had that same surgery not too long ago. How about you talk to her and she can kind of give you some ins and outs on what to expect. So she comes over to me. She says, Pastor Ken sent me over to you. I'm having surgery. He said, you had the same surgery. You could help me out. And I says, absolutely. What kind of surgery are you having? She says, oh, I'm having a hysterectomy. I said, I've never had a hysterectomy. And she goes, huh? I said, yeah, I've never had a hysterectomy. I wondered why he said that. And I said, I can tell you what I know from the women that are in my family who have had them, but I've not had one personally. So we both walk over to PK and I said, babe, you sent her to me because you said, I'd had a hysterectomy. I said, he says, yeah, like last year you had a surgery. I said, babe, I had my gallbladder removed. He says, oh, isn't it all in the same area? Sir, I need you to go back to.
My bad. I have mastered one area of your body, and that's technically
so yes, we are not going to discuss PCOS right now with him because he doesn't know the difference from the gallbladder and the uterus, so we're not going to do that. But anyway, all of those things though took a toll on how my body just felt and responded, how I felt emotionally. It did, and doctors were experimenting with different hormone treatments and all of that. I was all over the place. I didn't know if I was coming or going. It was a lot.
Yeah, and just imagine being young in your 20s. From my side, I didn't have that framework. All I knew was my wife doesn't want to be with me, and I started to take that personal. And that was a challenge. And
that made everything worse because now I wasn't just dealing with a body that wasn't responding. I was also carrying the guilt of hurting the man that I loved. And I was carrying rejection that I didn't know how to process. So we're both hurting each other while loving each other. And we didn't know how to fix it.
And there can be a lot of reasons for this disconnect, whether it's illness, trauma, medications that lower libido, stress. And believe it or not, she was dealing with several of them at the same time. As her husband, I witnessed this woman. I saw her go through and suffer many challenges that clearly had her kind of all over the place. And to add to that, just some unprocessed trauma that just created the perfect recipe for disaster, in our bedroom.
I want to speak to one thing that just because I sense maybe somebody may be watching this needs to hear this, I don't want to brush over it. Early in our marriage, we got pregnant. Yeah. We were excited about that. We were a blended family. You had a boy and a girl. I had a boy and a girl. We were coming together to have a baby together. And then I ended up having a miscarriage. Now, this would be my 4th miscarriage at this point. And we handled and we processed that grief in 2 different ways.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so for me, I felt like you were very far removed from the situation. Like it was kind of like, oh, life happens, not realizing you were processing it by staying busy and kind of in your own head and in your own space. And you didn't really communicate that you actually felt a loss. And so I felt like I was carrying this loss by myself. And then the fact that I felt like you quickly wanted to get back into the bedroom. And I was still scared that if I got pregnant again, I was going to have yet another miscarriage. So I was almost afraid for us to come together again because I was like, no, I can't, I haven't even processed what's happening. I can't get pregnant again. And I felt like you weren't sensitive to that.
Wow.
And so
I did not know that.
Really?
It was the first time hearing that. I did not know that was what you were feeling. That explains some of the seasons we were in. Out of all of these episodes, you've never explained that to me.
Really?
I did not know that first time. When you just said it, I actually understood it. I did not understand that. And you're right. We were processing, the miscarriage in completely different ways. And for me, I didn't, because I'm not a woman, so I don't know what your body is feeling. All I know is she was pregnant and then she wasn't pregnant.
Right.
That's all I knew. I wasn't a part of the complications, the remains, and then you deal with the emotional, the spiritual, God, why, etc. No, I had no idea. And so, wow, thank you for sharing that. I hope that part, I felt like this episode, we did need to sit in that just a little bit, because I know that that's a contributing factor for a lot of women who are in godly marriages. So I did not know that. So, wow, thank you for being courageous to say that, because I didn't know. Yeah.
I think sometimes we don't get a chance to sit in that loss and talk about it, because I think especially when you have other kids, you just move on to taking care of your other kids.
Sure.
And I don't think enough women get a chance to talk about how you do feel real grief even for the baby you never got to hold. And how your body still reminds you that at one point you were pregnant. So you go from being pregnant and being expectant and being hopeful to then feeling grief, but your body takes a minute though to stop feeling pregnant. And so there's no baby there anymore.
Wow.
But there's a moment, there's a transition period where your body is like, wait, what happened? I thought we were carrying life. I thought we were nurturing something. And so even though there's no baby still there, sometimes your body takes a minute to catch up. And even hormonally, you go from all of this buildup of the hormones that your body produces to carry life to then boom. And so that does a work on your body. It does a work on your mind. It does a work on you. And as women, a lot of times we're still expected to just move forward. And so there was this moment where I was sad and I was asking God, like, wait, we're married. We love you. We're serving. We're tithers. We pray. What happened? This is a perfect environment to bring a baby into. What happened? So then as a mom, you sit with, well, what's wrong with me? Because I keep losing these babies. And so you're grateful for the ones you have, but you grieve the ones you don't have. And so I have 5 beautiful children, but I have 4 that I never got a chance to meet.
Jesus.
And so you say things to yourself like, well, I'll see them in heaven. Or just be grateful for the ones you have. And so I think that was hard because, to your point, I'm saying things to you now that I don't think we ever sat down and talked about.
Never in 20 years.
Because a big part of me was like, Dana, don't be ungrateful. There's some women who have no children. And here's also, and I don't mean to turn this episode into just about miscarriages.
I believe the Lord is on the episode. He's on the channel. And I feel like that this is something that clearly needed to be communicated. So regardless of what we have, let's sit in it, because it's clearly a need that needs to come out, not just for them, but for you too.
I think one of the things that the enemy, and I don't know about anybody else, but one of the tricks he played on me was this was payback.
In what way?
For it made me question whether or not I deserve to be a mom. Maybe you're not a good mom. You know, this was because you didn't do things the right way. This was because, you know, and it made me hyper fixated on be a good mom, be a good mom, be a good mom. You know, I was a teenage mom, so I did what a 16, 17-year-old knows how to do, you know, which is completely different than the mom I am now at this age. And it reinforced the judgment that people were already putting on me. And so it weighed on me for many, many years. Maybe I'm not a good mom. And that's why this keeps happening.
Wow.
And so it was tough. I was wrestling with a lot mentally and physically after that happened, because before I could maybe justify it. Now it's like, this is perfect. And it still happened.
Gotcha.
So the problem is you. And so then when you would want to come and be intimate, I'm just like, I'm going to get pregnant again. And because I'm obviously fertile myrtle, because I keep getting pregnant.
Not fertile myrtle.
So I was like, I'm going to get pregnant again. And I was like, and I just can't lose another baby back to back like that.
Wow.
So it was less about coming together and more about just being afraid of getting pregnant.
So as a husband, you know, and thank you once again for sharing that, what could a husband do to support his wife in a season like that?
I think understand that it's a real loss.
Okay.
It's a real loss. I don't care how early in the pregnancy you lose a baby. There's something that happens when you realize that you're pregnant, and then you're no longer pregnant. It's a real loss. Wow. And her body is going through a lot, and her mind is going through a lot.
Wow.
I think just being there, because every person processes it differently.
That's true.
But just being there and not treating it like she passed a kidney stone. Or some minor, you know.
I think there's a part of that experience that you have that the man won't have.
Right.
You know, he
just
can
like
only
with pregnancy,
period. You can't,
right?
you know, you can share and explain, but we don't know that. We don't have any experience or any personal connection, if you will, I guess, to where it makes sense. And so for, you know, men, I guess it you know, that's an area of opportunity. Because, you know, like I said, for like 20 years I've been with you, I never heard those words. It even clicked in my mind that something happened, trauma hit her body, and you were expecting her to show back up like it was a brand new day, and it wasn't. But you weathered through it. Even though I didn't have language for it, I knew something was off. And God graciously covered us, you know, in that season. And that's my prayer for anyone listening to this, that the grace of God can come in and fix what the enemy meant for evil. Right. You know, it takes that scripture, you know, no weapon formed, you know, against us shall be able to prosper. And post that moment, we gave birth to a beautiful girl named Gabriella Simone Bennett.
I want to say that even though I don't think you knew how to show up. I didn't doubt that you loved me. And so I think that we have to understand that the lack of tools doesn't mean that there's a lack of love.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, you didn't know, and to your point, I'm now 20 years later, having language to
You
share
didn't
with
have
you
language then.
for what
You
I
were
was
young.
doing. Right.
You were
And
young.
so I didn't have tools. You didn't have tools. And so I'm not going to demonize you for not knowing how to show up, just like you're not demonizing me for not knowing how to say what I needed. And that's, to your point, where the grace of God comes in.
And that's why I think channels like this is important. You know, we're not here for subscribers and likes. We really are here because we care.
I hope it helps somebody.
And we really hope it helps somebody. We're doing this not because we don't have anything to do. Do you hear me? We're doing this. We got a list of things that just are pertinent that we should be doing. And we still do, but this is something clearly that the Lord wants us to do. So, and prayerfully, it's helping you guys. You know, I knew you wanted to be intimate with me. I know you did. But your body just refused to start the engine and let alone leave the driveway. And so, you know, I hope, one, I'm sorry that if I didn't show up the way you needed me to show up. I apologize for that because I was a young kid that just had a lot of, I just wanted your body. I didn't care what was happening. But it at least now, man, it's like a light bulb.
I know, right? It's like you replay it and you're like, I remember when she said, or I remember,
So let's talk about the fact that although we weren't sleeping together, we still loved each other. We did not fall out of love. And I think that's a key component. You want to?
Yeah, I always say this and it still rings true. I'm not even sure if I knew what love was before you. I thought I did, right? And I even said, like, I love you. But what we have far outweighs anything that I've ever experienced. Wow. To be seen, flaws and all, to be valued, even my quirks and the things that get on your nerves. To be known. Sometimes I think you know me better than I know me. To be prayed for and to be led spiritually, to be wanted, protected, even at a great cost. This marriage has taught me how much God loves me to send me the perfect person for me. And so how could I not be in love with you? We've had so many ups and downs and ins and outs and bumps and discovery and all the things. But I say this frequently, I go to bed knowing I'm loved and I wake up knowing I'm loved.
And I feel the same way. I do. I go to bed knowing you want me and you want to be with me, and that you're going to chase me down. Praise the Lord, somebody. And,
are you prophesying or are you prophesying or testifying?
I'm testifying. Now, here's what's interesting. Love was never the question in our marriage. I don't think that was ever the issue.
And that's what made the season of our marriage that was sexless so excruciating, because we were hurting each other while loving each other and didn't know how to fix it. And that really just didn't make any sense. And so it never felt like a matter of the heart. It felt more like a matter of biology, logistics, faulty wiring, bad timing.
And I'm grateful because even in those hard moments, we didn't throw the baby away with the bathwater.
Right.
I know you didn't always fully understand what I was needing, but you did make sure that I was loved. And one of the things I do also appreciate is you showed up where you could. You gave 100 where you could. That to me was a great demonstration of your love for me. Although I wasn't able to be served in that capacity to the degree that I felt I needed it, you showed up in so many other ways that far outweighed the scale of the bedroom. Does that make sense? And I think that's something partners need to see, where they may not be great over here, but I'm certain there's some areas in your spouse's, you all's relationship that your partner is great. And so you just have to celebrate, because the tides will turn. They will turn. The seesaw will adjust. You're gonna have highs, you're gonna have lows, you're gonna have victories, and you're gonna have valleys. And so the question we want to answer today is being in love with your spouse but not sleeping together normal? And the question is yes. That's
the
why
answer.
the
Yeah.
answer is yes. Because if you're listening to this, you're probably in that season right now where the love is there, but the desire isn't. And you might be wondering, is it something wrong with me, or is it something wrong with us? And we just want to say it as plainly as we possibly can. It's completely normal to feel sexually disconnected from your partner at times. And so what we want to do is share some things that contribute to the breakdown. Now, what we share today isn't all inclusive, but these are some things that we kind of have excavated over the last 20 years and identified as, similar patterns of the breakdown. What's the smirk about? What's the smile about?
Nothing.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about that.
You know I like words, so we excavate.
So I got to use excavate tonight then.
Was that your word of the day?
That,
I'm not trying to be funny.
excavate.
Come on. I'm not
Okay.
trying to be funny.
Okay, but no, it is not my word of the day.
Okay, I was just asking. You getting all offended?
That isn't
I'm
your
not
word
saying
of
you
the
couldn't
day.
know excavate.
I know excavate.
Oh my gosh. Let's walk through these. The first one is stress and life pressures.
Yeah.
There's work stress, financial strain, parenting responsibilities, major life transitions. When your nervous system is in survival mode all day, your body doesn't automatically shift into intimacy mode at night. It's not a lack of love. Sometimes it's a lack of capacity.
That's good. That's good. Another one is communication. I think the marriage rises and falls on communication. I know the channel this channel is about particularly physical intimacy. We want help couples to, feel again, touch again, try again. So that's all we're talking about on this channel. But if we could get couples to see that what's happening in the bedroom could really be addressed at the dining room table if you both just talk. When you can't openly talk about what you need, or when unresolved conflict is sitting in the room, it creates a emotional wall. And that wall doesn't stay in the living room. Hear me. It follows you to the bedroom. It really does. It really does.
Yes.
So I know you busy trying to get in the sheets. Bruh, get in her head. Have a conversation. Get in her heart. Figure out what it is, what's on her heart. I did like a 5 things you can do to make her madly want you or something like that. And most of the points that I was making was all around communication. Because I know that's not what we want to talk. Just take your clothes off. But no, let's talk. But if we can understand that communication breakdown is a challenge, it really will help get to the root.
Absolutely. The next one is physical health issues, hormonal changes, medication, chronic illnesses, fatigue. Your body might be working against you. And that's not a character flaw, especially as we age. It's just simple biology. Past 40, you go to bed fine and wake up with something hurting. Right. And it just is what it is. And this was a huge factor for us, between the miscarriages, the hormone treatments, the medication side effects. My body was fighting a war that I didn't choose. And a lot of you have inboxed us talking about, things like erectile dysfunction and menopause and perimenopause. These are real things that impact your body, that then impact your sexual health.
Speaking of erectile dysfunction, speaking of that, I want us to do an episode on how to get around that with some things you could do in that particular area, because we have received inboxes and it's a subject that you don't find often addressed. I believe there's a way you can address it, and since it's BennetLife TV, we're gonna talk about it. Okay. Right. Another area that contributes to this is emotional distance. Sometimes the other ED, emotional distance. Sometimes you're in the same house but living completely separate lives. Less quality time, less curiosity, less feeling known. And when emotional intimacy fades, physical intimacy usually follows. I'm often amazed that when you leave a house, Number one, I got Life 360 on you. I got maps. I'm following you. I know where you're at. But I'm going to check in. But I've gotten a lot better with that. I remember we were first together. I was stalking every
Oh my God.
move.
I couldn't even get to the stop sign at the end of the street without you calling. You all right? How you doing, babe? What you doing? I just backed out the driveway. My friends used to be like, oh my God, can he let you eat?
Your mother.
My mom was like, if something ever happened to you, we don't have to commit this man.
But, you know, we were just vested in you. I wanted you to return home safely. I just, you know, you leaving the house, just, you know, just, I have to spend time without you. And, you know, I just wasn't comfortable with that.
You had abandonment issues, but okay.
All right, let's talk about routine and predictability.
Yes.
When sex becomes mechanical or worse, non-existent, it starts to feel like a box to check instead of a connection to crave.
Yes.
Boredom in the bedroom isn't a sign of bad marriage. It's just a sign that something needs to shift in the bedroom.
Absolutely. And we've done things like purchase books that, you know, give you think challenges and things to do in the bedroom. I think we have one that's like
100.
I think it's 1,001 nights of great sex or something like that. We bought books that show you different, you know, positions and things like that to try, different romance and date challenges and things like that. Sometimes you just got to shake up, you know, what's going on.
That's good.
It can't always be the same, you know, grab and slap and flip and you know, sometimes that gets old. And you need to shake it up a little bit. So the next is relationship dissatisfaction. If there are ongoing issues with trust and respect or overall fulfillment in the marriage, those leaks will show up in the bedroom. So sex is often a symptom, not the source. If something is off physically, it's worth asking what's also off emotionally. So let's talk about what to actually do. How do you rekindle intimacy?
And this is when the tides begin to change for us. We went from just praying, you know, although prayer was a tremendous contributor to it. We really, you know, I did a lot of praying, a lot of fasting. I did do those two things too, and still today I call out, Lord, will you know, continue to touch the area of my marriage and the area of physical intimacy, touch our bedroom, touch our bank account, touch, you know, her physical body, do whatever. Let us fall in love. Let us remain in love with one another. Let us both not desire anyone outside of each other. That is an actual prayer that I pray. But here's what I want to say that helped turn the tide for us and could help you. One, you want to call a spade a spade. Let me just say it that way. Address the real underlying issue. Sometimes the disconnection isn't about the bedroom. I'm telling you, there are some unresolved issues that have been sitting in the marriage for months, and for some that we talk to for years. Resentment, unprocessed grief, trauma that was never named, health issues that were never addressed. And for us, I had to get honest about she had to get honest about what her body had been through. As she mentioned, the 4 miscarriages, the hormone chaos, the years of unprocessed sexual trauma. And then I also had to get honest about my own insecurities, the rejection that I was internalizing, the frustration that I wasn't even communicating well.
Right. That last part. You know, we couldn't heal what we wouldn't name. You know, and so we started naming it to each other, to our counselor, you know, start naming it to God. And at first it felt weird to talk to God about it. It felt weird to talk to you about it. But if we wanted to get better, we had to come to a point where we were willing to have the tough conversation. It's good. Any area in our marriage that has gotten better, it's been because we've sat down and we've talked about it. Good. If there's something underneath the disconnection, do not ignore it. I'm sorry, it's hard to have sex with an elephant in the room.
It's good.
It really is. And that's not protecting your marriage. It's just delaying the explosion.
My goodness.
All right, the next thing is redefine intimacy for the season.
Yes.
One of the best things we did was expand our definition of intimacy. We took the pressure for it to be sex all the time off the table. Because for a lot of couples, especially men, intimacy equals intercourse. If I'm not having sex, then we are not intimate and we're not connected. And that's just not the case. Intimacy has a much wider definition than that. And you'll feel disconnected anytime it's not happening if your only definition of intimacy is sex. But it's so much bigger. It's physical touch that doesn't lead anywhere. It is long hugs. It's holding hands. It's falling asleep with your legs intertwined. It's laying on the couch, Netflixing and chilling. It's praying together, laughing together, sitting in silence together without this need to fill it.
When we expanded that definition, we stopped feeling like failures.
Right.
Because even in our lowest seasons, we were still being intimate, just not in the way we thought that counted.
Right.
And here's the irony. When we stopped obsessing over the one type of intimacy, the others started flowing. And eventually that one came back too.
Yeah.
Here's another point that I think also helped. We were willing to seek help without shame. We would not be where we are today without outside help. Now, I'm not saying all the outside help we got was wise counsel. I'm gonna just say that, but just make sure you're led by God on who to talk to. But counselors, coaches, doctors, trusted mentors who could see what we couldn't. And for a long time, we were ashamed to admit that we needed help. I thought it meant I was broken beyond repair, but getting help wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a sign of wisdom.
Absolutely. It amazes me that we don't mind seeking help in other areas. If your car breaks down, you're going to go to a mechanic. If your body breaks down, you're going to go to the doctor.
Absolutely.
So our marriages are no different. If it is something that you value, you're going to go and seek help to make sure that it is good. And some of us are carrying burdens that are too heavy for just you and your spouse to tackle, and deep wounds, things that need more than just this podcast episode. Yes. And that's okay. We hope that these spark you to start having conversations and looking for additional help. Not that this is just the end all be all. We hope it's an introduction to you diving deeper into what you might need. And so getting help doesn't mean that your marriage failed. It means that you're fighting for it. We mentioned this in another episode that our therapist said one thing he appreciated about us, that over the years that he's known us, we contend for our marriage. Yes. We are willing to not fight each other, but fight together for our marriage.
That's good. Well, guys, I hope that today's episode has helped you put words to something you've been feeling. But I need y'all to do me a favor. Number one, if this is your first time checking out BennetLife TV, and if you haven't already, will you do us a solid? Hit that subscribe button. Secondly, will you let us know in the comments what part of today's conversation we really got personal? I know I got some insight, as it relates to that season where we were not physically connected. And what questions do you want us to answer next? What are your thoughts on us doing an episode on erectile dysfunction? I even want to have a conversation about toys, like, is it, I've thought about, unwrapping one and on the episode. What you think? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for somebody to screenshot that and it turns
is what
into...
it's going to be. But this is BennetLife TV, and our channel is all about helping couples feel again, touch again, try again. So if we're talking about having the conversation about erectile dysfunction, does things like sex toys belong in Christian marriages? It's something to think about. So we want to know your answer.
I give you a list of toys to try out.
Okay. We want to know your answer. So let us know in the comments. And then thirdly, we want you, after you subscribed, after you've commented, and let us know where you are chiming in from what part of the world, will you help us build our Instagram profile with Together 360? Now, Together 360 is you have to drop the vowels, and I want to explain why that matters. We drop the vowels on purpose because in a lot of marriages, the vowels are what go missing first. The I do becomes I'm done, the warmth becomes silent, the connection becomes distance, and you still look like a couple on paper, but the voice of the marriage is gone. So Together 360 is our reminder. We're putting the voice back in your bedroom, the language back in the intimacy, the connection back in the covenant. And we've got one goal, and that is, and this is something I've been recently praying about, that God would use us to transform the bedrooms of 1 million couples and we cannot do that without you. Also, we've created something. You want to tell them about it?
Sure. We've created something for couples to help you guys identify how you're showing up in the bedroom. You can click the link in the description of today's episode and take the bedroom quiz. After you take the quiz, it's very short, about 2 minutes. You can share it with your spouse and use it as a conversation starter, not a weapon. And if you know a couple who's been wounded by bad advice, or a couple that is struggling through a sexless moment or season in their marriage, please send them this episode. We want you to understand that you don't have to bleed in silence. Your marriage does not have to suffer in silence. You have a whole community here and a whole channel here that is championing for you.
Awesome. Well, this has been great today, guys. We love you all. We're praying for you, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Talk soon.